surrounding you, there's kind of the continuity of the neighborhood with the intervention of the students and monks, and the mural on top of the kitchen, it's a plan of the neighborhood with the interventions showing kind of the network that they're creating around. So later on you can just move around.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elke. And in Mexico, housing is a constitutional right. But what if care was a constitutional right?
In our serious conversations with Elke Krasny, an architectural theorist, she defines care as a condition of possibility of life, where pure violence is the architecture of imposition, control, and limitation based on forced bodies to move in highly specified ways. Considering this, an architecture of care can be understood as ultimately a space of possibilities and freedom.
Our project is a community center that centers women who simply can't afford a lazy Sunday morning. Be it the single working woman who has no free time to break the cycle of her days, the entrepreneur by day, mother by night that needs mentorship as she builds her business, the retired elderly who has much to offer but is void of an outlet, or even the little girl who simply dares to dream of becoming a lawyer, an engineer, artist, architect, doctor, athlete, or president in life.
Women make up to 70% of workers in health and take up 3 times as much unpaid care work as men. We seek to care for women by creating spaces and time for them to learn and develop skills outside of domestic labor, and to provide a space to build relationships with children and other women, as many are already doing on this work. Through organizations such as Mujeres de la Tierra, Karolina, and Fondo Semilla, to name a few, who would actively engage with the community.
In thinking about the various rituals of daily life, we explored the different ways this might take form through a stop-motion animation to reveal the domestic realm as well as the invisible acts of domestic labor.
In this video, the people are also rendered invisible. Nonetheless, the women are still very much present and felt through the everyday movement of objects. Labor as an invisible act comes to the foreground.
Color is used to show acts of collective activities, while scenes in neutrality show repetitive, isolated, and individual acts of labor. We present independent women and not so lazy Sunday morning.
From one's bedroom
To the park for exercise.
to the market by grocery,
The act of cleaning with laundry.
to then cooking for a family and loved ones in the kitchen,
To the school or daycare.
to community town housing, a part-time job,
And to the sidewalks for leisure and recovery.
and then on the right
okay. The model is very strong. Our site, as you can see here in the bottom corner of our drawing, is situated in the southeast corner adjacent to Park Alameda, the heart of Santa Maria la Ribera, which you can see in our collective neighborhood drawing over there. The site currently exists as a 100 meter by 100 meter, or 330 feet by 330 feet, wide car parking structure owned by the telecommunications company Telmex for its day-to-day operations.
In stark contrast to the neighborhood, our site's existing facade is bare. Characterless corrugated steel sheet, void of openings, runs the entire 100-meter span of the site. There are no traces of people, nor just the use of efficiency for traffic and cars. The site occupies almost the entirety of the neighborhood block, disrupting the flow of people in an otherwise highly trafficked area.
Our project takes a thin strip of this Telmex site, and we saw this as an opportunity to humanize and bring back the spirit of life to this place. We chose the site due to its direct adjacency to the park and existing housing blocks, with aspirations to create an in-between space, one that bridges the scale and the relationship between the house and the city. With Santa Maria la Ribera having a growing aging population, we asked how could we weave into the fabric of the neighborhood that is asynchronous to its changing needs.
With the many hats that women inherently take up, our community center's program supports the intergenerational shift for younger generations and groups of people to recognize, value, and take part in domestic labor. The design originated from a series of 5 questions. Rather than designing from the outside, we instead imagine spaces from within, at the scale of diverse bodies, through drawing plan obliques and painting experiences, as you can see, exploring how their adjacencies and overlaps might provoke community.
We asked ourselves, what if? To imagine, wonder, and daydream about an architecture of possibilities.
What if the kitchen was a playground?
So that children and young boys could also learn to cook and share the responsibilities of the household.
What if the library was a laundry room?
So that you could learn and study with others as you work.
What if cleaning was a play?
So that work became play, a place to socialize and meet new people.
What if exercise brought economy?
So that women could instead care for oneself, take part in male-dominated professions, or have alternative sources of income.
What if care was a constitutional right?
So that care could be visible, celebrated, and valued.
So that women are no longer faced to carry the burden of domestic labor alone.
So that women can become anything they aspire to be. In terms of the design, if you look at our plan oblique on that side of the wall, the lower portion, which is east, is closer to the existing housing blocks. You can see the housing blocks cut out on the right side of that plan oblique drawing over there. And it's closer to existing housing blocks, and that area is more densely programmed. In contrast, the upper portion, which is west, and sits directly adjacent to Alameda Park, which would be on the top right corner over there. The spaces become much more ambiguous and open-ended. It is a space of possibilities and open-endedness. Function and program pulled apart, overlap to distance. Colors bleed into one another. Floor tiles spill over from spaces to spaces. Transitions fade in and out. Here, the architect's role is subdued and thrown down. The people invited to shape their own space. Quoting Luis Barragan in his writings about emotional architecture, the space's only function is pure emotion. It is a space that uplifts the human spirit, a space of joy and possibility.
Through an adaptive framework that is anchored as a grid of the existing warehouse structure, it allows the architecture to adapt to the changing needs of the community as they develop their ties to the space. Planted gardens dispersed throughout the site that are nurtured by the people, lending itself to seasonal communal programs. And an open courtyard adjacent to the neighboring vecindades that can house large-scale communal events such as movie screenings or dance parties. The Frankfurt Kitchen by Margaret Liszkowski was designed to prioritize efficiency and functionality, streamline kitchen tasks, and ultimately dictate how a room utilizes and takes up space. Our kitchen takes on an alternative
The kitchen, often thought as a service space, is imagined as a playscape for children and people of all ages. No longer individualized and tethered to the four walls of a house, the kitchen now exists outdoors in the public realm as a collective space. Inspired by the Kodomo Shokudos in Japan, which literally translates to children's kitchen, a space where children learn to cook with elders. Bodies are imagined to roam freely with kitchen counters of varying scales, shapes, and sizes, freeing the body and the soul through movement.
Responsibility burdened by a single room, but instead is a form of play enjoyed by children and people of all ages, where traditional recipes and culinary knowledge can be passed down and practiced.
The laundry room seen over here in the model blurs the scenes of work and leisure. It is a space of collective gathering, a space to befriend the other, to get to know your neighbor, to share stories and laugh with one another. It is also a library should a person desire to wander alone, to be alone for a minute, to learn, to relax, but still at the same time be connected to one another.
Exercise and rehabilitation is a space where caring for oneself is an act of recovery, where the ability to receive care is no longer a luxury but rooted in ritual for everyday life. By considering the existing high-intensity exercise routines that many practice on the daily, we imagine the site as one that could potentially nurture the recovery and care of an aging population through physical therapy and exercise training workshops.
Residential or transitional housing imagined for people in vulnerable communities or temporary artists that could at the same time offer workshops to the local community. Where care violence often occurs, these spaces are designed to weave into the programming of the site. Sharing opportunities is a collective support.
Finally, we believe that the right of care for women should be deeply embedded and expanded in Century and in all neighborhoods in Mexico.
We believe that care should be a constitutional right.
Women are strong in their own right and should be celebrated. Our project explores how we can create spaces so that they don't have to do everything. Through the belief that a feminist space is inclusive, diverse, layered, complex, and colorful.
By sharing tasks from the individual to the collective, thus blurring the boundaries between private and public, time and space and opportunities for women are greatly expanded. This weaving carves out non-existent time in the lives for women to explore as they truly wish. It is an architecture of possibilities and hope. Thank you very much.
About the sort of, I mean, it's a huge amount of production. I'm just wondering about how that came together as two different people.
Well, the process actually of working together kind of came quite like organically, I would say. It kind of came, I mean, it stemmed from friendship, I think, first and foremost. And we both had very different interests initially. And actually, but we found that as a space because that was kind of like an opportunity, a way to, you know, bridge those differences and working together. So I think like one thing that we learned was to often like share. Like we would often work on drawings together and then swap often and then repeat again. And then also like talking over to what we were interested in and how we felt the project could push and often that kind of thing. That made the project more interesting and more rigorous because you know, the project is very much about tensions between things that don't fit together. And that was very much like part of the process. I think we were always in competition with one another, always, you know, always talking about how can we make it better art and But it was a very fruitful and collaborative process.
Yeah, and we really wanted to see how if we're creating a space that's not only for women, it doesn't exclude the others. We're really going out and forth and understanding how these spaces can be welcoming to everyone and really equal.
So for me, that's a key success of your project is that this ambition to kind of take women out of some kind of closet, some kind of isolation, and lower status for things that they're involved in, to share that with everybody in the neighborhood and with the society liberates not only women, it liberates everybody. It says to men, they don't have to be restricted to a set of roles that might not be so great, but to kind of offer up more possibilities for everyone. And I love how architecturally that's led you to these explorations of different scales, these different kind of, this theme of celebration runs through everything, and I wonder if there should also be these spaces that are sort of quieter, of refuge and contact. But the overall spirit of it is so generous, and so it's using architecture to bring more people into more fruitful relations. And I love it.
A two-part question. One is you began your presentation by, if I heard you correctly, an entire city block controlled by a corporate entity, a telecom company, if I remember. So question part one is part of the profound inversion of everything, including the taking over of the city block controlled by a corporation? That's question one. And then two is a question of scale, which is, in order for this to work, do you need the scale of reintegrating a full city block to do what you do, or how small can it get and still have impact?
Yeah, we were thinking about how in terms of scale and putting this first in the site, so they don't have to take up that block. And really thinking evidence throughout the city, because even Capitolina is nearby, so we're really supporting these organizations that are already around. So we wouldn't need to have a really, really large staff.
I think the question of scale is a good one because that was something that we had wrestled around the whole semester. Actually, initially when we were thinking of the project, we were thinking about taking up the whole entirety of the site, like 330 feet by 350 feet, 100 meters, whatever that is. We quickly realized through designing it that the scale was enormous, and it wouldn't be actually. I don't think we would like the scale of the project. I think is big, but the spaces just don't feel like it. It wants to be domestic. It wants to be intimate. It wants to feel like a home. And so we only took a strip of that. We recognized the site as problematic because right adjacent to the site is the park. It's the heart of the neighborhood. People go every morning, every night, 11 p.m. midnight to the place that is the heart of the neighborhood. Yet a block away at the corner of it is this whole like lifeless, characterless, steel corrugated like structure. There's no people there. There's nothing there. This needs to change. There has to be some sort of spirit back to that neighborhood. So we took that as an initiative, and also because of the housing decency. So we really wanted to address that. And so the project actually began larger and then got smaller and smaller. Even in this model, we're only seeing about like halfway of the loop over there. But we felt like it was important to create that connection between two streets as a way to also mediate between the parts.
Like Oscar Wilde once wrote that if nature would have been comfortable, architecture would never have been invented. You could almost say if society would be perfect, we'd go to the new perfect. But what happens if this is in a more hostile society? Could you make the same thing? For this I only see women, so where is the man?
There are
Oh,
many.
No, but that's in the story, so this to come with full position, you also need the counterpart in a way.
I don't know.
I'm skeptical, but yeah. I have a man, so sorry, yes. I was too, with 5 daughters, so I object against that.
Is your question about like how this project will work in a different context with the second context?
Yeah.
It's also a great question, and I think really it allows for the space to really adapt based on culture. But for this space, the reason why we want to be very careful is that we don't want it to restrict anyone, and that it could really be programmed day, night, and this allows the community to really feel that they're trusted in the space, and they're included in spaces that maybe they might not normally. And so the openness really allows for more inclusivity and this close emotional investment.
I lived in Japan last year for about a year, and I think if this project was in Japan, I don't know if it would be as colorful or as poppy, you know what I mean? I think I've now been to Mexico City twice with Tatiana, and I think the first time that I went to Mexico City, I was blown away by like the diversity of buildings and colors, and also the openness and the architecture. I felt also translated to the openness and the spirit of the people as well there, and that was something that I think was really cognizant in the design process, that the architecture needs to be open. We're not designing buildings or objects for you to look at. We're designing spaces. So you're looking in, you're looking out, you're looking through, you're in several spaces at once. The color, again, is very much a form of, it's very much rooted to the people, you feel like, and it's a spirit, again, of Haorong was also quite influential, impactful, like
No, I know, but it also has a sense of rooflessness.
yeah.
Where you could almost say architecture is defined by the roof, more or less.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it becomes a landscape.
Yeah.
Or cities where I think especially for this project, we do have some areas that are sheltered, lands or streets happen during when it's raining or something going on. Right outside of this today, but I think having it more like a dispersal of these closed spaces really allows us to be
First of all, congratulations on this talk. Extremely impressed by this, and you have such an amazing presentation. It's so convincing and so consistent. That was, I mean, I'm almost hesitant to ask this question. So, the project, like giving visibility to hidden unpaid domestic labor and transferring it into multi-generational leisure and play space. That's amazing. But do you also anticipate any economic liberation for women that's going to come out of this? Because otherwise, don't you think that there's a risk of aestheticization of this care as a, I don't know, almost agnostic, selfless giving, which kind of perpetuates the unpaidness of domestic labor. If you make it too cute, it's almost like, yeah, unpaid labor is good if you turn it into play or something. So I wonder if you want to think a little bit about how this will enable upward class mobility for women. Or, I mean, you said care should be a constitutional right, but it's almost like getting recognition and payment for your care should be a constitutional right. So what is your, how do you anticipate the upward class mobility or liberation, economic liberation for women? And what do you do to de-risk or mitigate the risk of making unpaid domestic labor too cute, too flexible?
This is, by the way, a better wording of my question.
Okay. No, that's a great comment, because we were really thinking about how the spaces could provide them an economy as well. So how maybe people that have been cooking for others their entire life could host workshops, they could teach others through a weekly workshop, or they could
I'd love to hear that. Or just
I really love the hybrid quality of your project, is something I'm exploring, and, but I'm wondering, and it reminds me of Bernard Chuy's phrase of pole vaulting in the elevator and break dancing. So you're doing different things in different places. But are they differentiated? I mean, if you're in a space, you know what you're supposed to be doing, and it doesn't matter. And should it just be one big open shed? Like, what for you? How would you kind of justify the specificity that you actually are creating? Does it need that? Does the product need that? Or can you just, or could you just go and do anything in any space?
You mean, is your question, if I'm understanding, is it like a question about boundaries and setting where one?
Yeah, or where you would, I mean, obviously a kitchen would need an oven, but for the other spaces, could you mix and could people decide what to do here?
That's a good, very good question, I think, and actually that was what we were trying to blur, and also
Right.
probably to your question is that like in some spaces it doesn't matter, and that's the fact that you're in a space that you could see all of these things, and also going back to your question about like economy and valuing work and valuing care. One of the ideas that we had was that like for things to be valued, we need to make them visible, and they need to be seen, and they need to be. So for instance, the library, the laundry room, which is typically put on the rooftops of a building, and it's the last space that you wouldn't see, is actually now the first space that you enter into the courtyard. But still, there's a private buffer. You can still see the movement of the people because there's no opacity around there. So there's these kind of relationships that we're getting into, not completely making everything public, not completely making everything private, but there's an in-between.
Okay, nice. So this question, where I think you've imagined, the celebration of this work and then making it more interesting to a lot of people. But I don't see the other side of that, imagining, so one of the problems for women that I understand is they just work so many more hours. If you count the unpaid labor as well as the paid labor. And so part of this, in a way, is to liberate the hours. Okay, maybe I don't have to cook every night because there's a meal thing. Then where's the place for me to go to be quiet in that time that I've liberated from those unpaid hours, and there's more shared, but then where is the time for me to be, to study to be this doctor or whatever that vision of liberation was, or just to be quiet, watch TV or whatever it is that somebody likes to do.
I have a two-part comment slash question, and two half of this area related. One has to do with share Ezra's concern about the aestheticization of domestic labor here, but also, you know, the kind of openness of your plan. While, you know, I think it speaks to a certain type of spatial liberation, it's also kind of the strategy employed by like, you know, Silicon Valley companies to keep their employees captured for like part of their day, right? So, you know, you move along, you play on your scooter, you play a little foosball, you code a little bit, you know, you sit on a beanbag chair, and you're told that these are all kind of like perks and benefits, but in fact you're spending a 16-hour day at work, unable to do anything else. The other question here related, relates to your use of the plan of lead acting measurements. Why? Because you make pretty thorough use of it here and over there. Was there any particular reason why you chose that drawing type?
I think, well, to answer your second question was we didn't want to start, we wanted to start from experiences, and we wanted to start from space, the project, that way. So we didn't start from the front. We wanted to draw, like imagine what that would feel like. So again, it's not massive model, bend down, building small scale plans and sections. We wanted to do a completely different approach, and again, also taking on, you know, the ideas of collage, and like you can see all of these here. I think like at the starting point of the design is different, it really leads to a different end result. So that was very important for us that we didn't want to start with that. So Sorry, what's your second question?
No, what's my second question, it's fine.
That was
I think I ask because there's a way that it really works for me here and a way that it maybe doesn't. It works for me, I'm looking at these down here, especially, because you didn't project up. The plan is flat and projected at an angle. And so that it really, it provokes the kind of double reading, absent perspectival distortion that the kind of axonometric or plan oblique allows for. So I think spatially, I see these things kind of vibrating between one point of view and another. But then I look over there, we've got a 0 degree, plan oblique or axon, and if the project is about making the invisible visible, one of the curious characteristics about the 0 degree axon is that it has a tendency to obscure things that are kind of deeper in space, which I think, it has been exploited most famously by John Haydick to kind of really productive theoretical ends, and I think could have been exploited here too, right? What if something's being made visible, is there something that's also being covered up? Or does the architecture evolve in the context of the axonometric of the plan oblique, as it often did in Haydick's work, to kind of critique and expose the occlusion that happens in certain kind of social and political contexts?
That I appreciate it. I wanted with your video there. I was very I wanted to and I appreciate all the sounds that you included that I think like city sounds.
They're from the trip.
Yeah, it's really great. Yeah, I can identify it. And I appreciate the way you are exposing and visualizing the decision that is happening at the experience. And I wonder, like, to me, and I don't know if I am correctly, but to me this is more like bringing what is really in the back of the house or in the back of life, bringing it to the front and more, aspect and more visible, more kind of like bringing to way the opposite side, and then probably the private, that's the private part is that part that we don't see. So I wonder if this is more a common area where you go after these, go into the home and then you sleep. And I wonder how these understanding, and I imagine this could be your next step, like how this understanding of all these, or what you've been learning in this project can be applicable in their homes. Like and maybe this is related to the scale aspect that it was forward. How we can then design homes in a different way, and how we can understand these kind of like new spaces, but at least how we can what happens with the homes, what happens with the, which I think that you're exploring other methods, but that's
I would break my code of silence just to answer your question, because first one.
Okay.
The Silicon Valley model. Because especially with this project, we're looking at the blocks of care, that there are many examples in the world. There are specific interesting example in Bogota, where, I think the radical difference between the Silicon Valley office model and these ones is that, first of all, in the Silicon Valley, you have to work there and you get paid for those 16 hours that you're there. And here is the other way around. Also, people get paid to be doing their jobs, cleaning or washing for a collective, but the rest are using it in any way, in any matter. So you don't get paid to be there. If you want to be there, you want to be there. You don't want to be there, you don't want to be there. So I think that is a radical difference. And in the blocks of care in Bogota, they really primary work, because these places care for the people who they care for. So they are able to kind of put the burden for the labor to the space, and not the other way around, which is a solution.
It's a great answer.
Thank you.
Well, it's because instead of
Yes.
telling you
Yes.
privately, I
We have wanted to answer all the questions we could. But I was thinking, you're probably looking to Google headphones or something.
sheer leisure quality where no work, whatever, so no.
I would say maybe like one of these paintings, like that's one. That's the view looking out into the northern, the top part of the drawing, where again that's the space that we
It's the upper half.
Yes, that's the upper half. That's not modeled in this model, and that's the space that we said becomes more open-ended. And I think like.
Garden, small garden, but it really allows them to use the space that
Like we imagine it as like when you blur all these programs, that there's not a term that eventually there's not a term to define this space. And I think a good example of what an undefined space might be within space. It has many functions. Like you could make it into community gardens. You could sit on it, play with whatever. But I think one of its main functions is emotion and like joy, right? And to just it's there because it makes you happy, and that's what the space is. So we've tried to make that spaces diminish our role there, make it much more open.
Thank you very much. We're going to break for lunch. Lunch is on the third floor. You can take the elevator when you get out. Turn right. I'll go there. So I'll direct you.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one thing. I'm really happy, and especially for photography, and I want to be able to thank everyone that is here, Tatiana and Karolina, but also who's here today. I didn't expect I wasn't expecting that. To provide a lot of the end of the last love, especially these last weeks. I don't know if I'm correct.
At 2:30.
Oh my god. I saw you guys there earlier. Oh my god. That was great. Yeah, no, thank you guys.
It's definitely very different from our field, but like we learned a lot, I feel like.
Oh, really? Okay, that's good.
I think it's just a relief.
Thank God it's over. Oh my god, I've been wanting to play volleyball too. Yeah. This is final. This is like the final graduation party.
So you're actually proud of yourself.
Yeah, we just done. This is well, that's it. 10 years of. Thank you guys for coming. Are you guys playing tomorrow or today?
Special effort.
Yeah, you guys have had before, right? Volleyball.
I think I saw you guys on
They play at the
It's my girl, yes.
I'm the best player. She's here until the end of the meeting.
Oh, okay.
I'm done now, so much more free. I've been working on this for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so it's like non-stop. Oh my god, it's non-stop. I was just been waiting until I just like... We don't have to stay here, but we might. Alright, that's fine. Where you guys off to later? Oh my god. So jealous. I feel disgusted. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Or later today.
But yeah, maybe today. Definitely like probably.
Are you guys here next week? Because you said you might be well, we'll be here for a while. See you guys. Wow. I did. This is so gonna be so embarrassing to watch later. Jesus Christ.